Hello everyone, this is Nitish and today I will teach you chapter 5 of Economic Survey 2022 and 23. Today is episode number 5 and chapter Prices and Inflation. This will be helpful for this year UPSC exam, but before starting this class I would like you to please subscribe the channel and also like and comment on videos. These contents are free of cost, so for test series and foundation video you can contact to Vysh sir on WhatsApp 7200 681 675. So let's begin with the introduction. Consumer price inflation in India went through three phases in 2022. So the phase 1 is a rising phase up to April 2022 when it crested at 7.8%. Then a holding pattern at around 7% up to August 2022. Then, which is the last phase, are declining to around 5.7% by December 2022. Next point in the introductory part is regarding WPI and CPI, which means Wholesale Price Index and Consumer Price Index. The gap between these two are reduced and demonstrate a tendency towards convergence. The increase in the Housing Price Index indicates a revival in the housing finance sector. In India, government and the central bank took decisive measures to cap the rise in prices. In 2020, supply-side disruptions pushed inflation beyond the RBI's upper tolerance limit of 6%. So, as I teach you what is the RBI's lower and upper tolerance limit in the previous class, I think that in the episode number 3, sorry. So, in the comment section, you have to write this tolerance limit. This is your homework. Excessive heat in summer and uneven rainfall in some parts of the country affected the farm sector, reducing supply and causing prices of some major products to rise. So the next topic is regarding domestic retail inflation. Financial year 22 witnessed lower CPI combined based retail inflation as compared to financial year 21. This inflation was driven by higher food inflation, while core inflation stayed at a moderate level. Food inflation ranged between 4.2% to 8.6% between April and December 2022, while the core inflation rate stayed at around 6% except in April 2022. So, the major contributors to food inflation are vegetable, cereals, milk and spices. The RBI forecast to increase in domestic prices for cereals and spices. The milk prices are also expected to spike, reflecting high feed costs. Next is regarding vegetables, that the high inflation in vegetables was mainly due to a spike in prices of tomatoes owing to crop damage and supply disruption due to unseasonal heavy rains in the major producing state. International prices of edible oils surged in financial year 22 owing to a shortfall in global production and increase in export tax levies by various countries. To insulate vulnerable sections from the rise in prices, the government has launched Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana on 1st January 2023 to provide free food grains to more than 80 crore beneficiaries. Continuing with the same topic, point is retail price inflation, which mainly stems from the agriculture and allied sector, housing, textile and pharmaceutical sector. Further, the global spillovers representing the imported inflation channel driven by price pressures in energy, mining, chemicals, trade and basic and machinery reach the retail segment mainly through wholesale prices. Now let's look at this line or the combined bar graph. Here the bar graph, which is blue in color, is representing the import of edible oils in quantity, that is lakh tons, and the red line is representing the import of edible oil in terms of value, that is 1000 crore. So here we can see that in terms of quantity it is very discrete, because in 2016 and 17 it is up, but it reduces in 2017-18, then again it increased in 18-19, and then again decreased in 19-20, remains constant in 2021, and again increase in 21-22. So it is very discrete in nature. Now look at the value curve. So here we can see that the value curve has increased from 2019-20 to 2021-22. So as I told you already that you have to only understand the trends. Now continuing with the same topic, rural inflation has remained above its urban counterpart throughout the country fiscal year. reversing the trend seen during the pandemic era. The gap between the rural and the urban inflation reached its widest in March 2022 due to a difference in experience of food inflation. Urban areas experienced a sharp increase in food prices of vegetables and oils during this time as compared to the hinterland. Rural inflation in different states, which means we will look at the rural inflation in different states. First one is regarding Haryana, Mizoram and West Bengal, where higher food and beverages and clothing and footwear inflation exist, and in Madhya Pradesh, Manipur and Assam, inflation in fuel and light segments. Now, move on to the next topic, that is domestic wholesale price inflation. The Russia-Ukraine crisis has led to an increase in prices of petroleum products, basic metals, chemicals and chemical products, and edible oils with maximum exposure to international pricing, which led to rising in domestic WPI inflation. Inflation in the manufactured product subgroup in financial year 23 saw a considerable decline compared to the previous year due to rationalization of duties on critical inputs and moderation in global commodity prices. So let's once again look at this bar graph. It is regarding the drivers of wholesale price inflation are basically two, the primary articles and the fuel and power in financial year 23. So you have to learn this thing, that in the financial year 23 the drivers of wholesale price inflation is primary articles and fuels and power. It is not manufacturing product, because from the graph you can see that here we have taken the reference from financial year 21 to financial year 23. So primary articles are increasing, fuel and powers are increasing, but manufacturing product is declining, and manufacturing product is on the right hand side of the diagram. Now, fuel price inflation. In financial year 22 and 23, inflation in wholesale price index fuel and power was mostly driven by high international crude oil prices. After divergence in April 2022, convergence has been observed between the WPI and CPI indices. Now the question arises, what are the factors which are responsible for this convergence? So there are two factors. First one is a cooling in inflation of commodities such as crude oil, iron, aluminium and cotton led to a lower WPI. And the second one is CPI inflation rose due to an increase in the prices of services. Now, come to the concluding part. Due to the anticipated slowdown in advanced economies, inflation risk coming from the global commodity prices are likely to be lower in financial year 24 than in financial year 23. However, the following events again disrupt the global commodity market. The number one is re-emergence of COVID-19 in China can trigger supply chain disruption. The probability of soft landing, that is tight monetary policy. The other name of tight monetary policy is soft landing in the US economy. And the last one is geopolitics associated with oil can particularly affect India's imported inflation. So amid such challenges, it is expected that monetary and fiscal authorities will be as proactive and vigilant as they are during the pandemic. So I hope you like my content and video. So please like and comment on video, subscribe the channel. Thank you.